Welcome to ET Catalyze Mad Stacks. Today we'll discover the mad world of ad stacks, and with us to learn, analyze, and maybe scrutinize, we have Bharat from Zaxis, Vikram from Adobe, and Sudipto from PubMatic. Welcome everyone.
Thank you, Deepak.
In the mad world of ad stacks, and in 2020, are the stacks and the odds against us is something that we really want to figure out today. I'll start with you, Sudipto. Recently, the IDFA, which is the Apple Identifier for Advertisers initiative, has been made opt-in. So for advertisers to discover and understand what the reader is consuming is going to be a little bit difficult. Does that become a big challenge for a company like yours and the ad community?
So good one to start off with, Deepak, and I'll actually take a couple of steps back before I get into that piece, and I think that should give you the broad context and sort of automatically lead on to the answer. The way to look at it is that all of this, Apple defuncting IDFA and third-party cookies going away, is it creating panic and all of that? I don't think so. The reality is that all of this did not work in all environments, right? Specifically mobile or CTV, for example. So while some of these would pose a challenge, but it is always an existing challenge. The way I would look at it is, it creates an opportunity. It creates a massive, massive opportunity to create a unique identity solution the right way. And what is the right way? The way I look at it, it should be consumer first. It should be privacy safe. It should be compliant. It should be future proofing itself. Works across devices, all platforms, less anonymous, probabilistic, right? So. And with the increase of consumer privacy regulations, right, and reactions from tech platforms like what Apple did or what Google did to block the usage of third-party cookies or do away with IDFA, it has caused nothing but to deteriorate the audience addressability. The overall addressable audience that is there. So it does nothing but reduces the opportunity for the publishers to make money or monetize from digital. And similarly, it reduces the buyer's ability to really, measure campaign performance and return on ad spend. So, it's important to point out that identity and audience addressability has not been solved for the open internet yet. And it is time, the way I look at it, it is time for everyone to come together and collaborate for a common solution. And if we don't do that, then we will face an uphill task against all the walled gardens.
Right. Bharat, you talk to a lot of clients of yours. And for clients, digital as a medium always promised to tell you most about the reader or the consumer of digital medium, unlike the print and the television. So when the entire premise of digital as a medium was that we'll tell you as much as possible about the digital audience, does the IDFA and the privacy angle that is now come into play, which Sudipto also referred to, the third-party cookies purge that Google has announced, how does one then go about selling digital as a medium? Because that was the big promise, and now that promise is being taken away. Will the advertiser thereby find enough ROI if that promise goes?
Yeah. So I think Deepak, there are ways to address this. One of the definite challenge which it comes into the present is that all of a sudden this change would happen in 2022. Whatever the recent news we got from the Google. But I think more or less there is enough time for advertisers to prepare themselves. So when I say prepare themselves, one definitely, as an advertiser community, everyone is working on how they can build their own first-party data strategy. So everyone is focusing on how they can create their own private data management platform, customer platform, CDPs and all. That's one of the approach which the advertiser community has already started taking. On the other side, I think I would say we will move back to the old school decade of contextual targeting if most of the behavior elements are not available. So how can we find out that the keywords or the content which is relevant to a consumer is present on the web page before we start serving ads? And I think the future is also about how we address the data regulation and the data privacy issues that we are talking about. So if consumer is now voicing out all the concerns that we have been facing so far on the data leakages, what we have seen over the last half a decade, I think it's the right time that the big giants are taking this big step and trying to control that who will get the access of the data. Because if the access of the data is not being shared with a trustworthy partner, or there are a lot of third-party companies who are just eating free lunches in between by not adding any value to the whole ecosystem, I think it's a right move. Also, I think the future is all about opening a lot of clean data rooms. When I say opening a lot of clean data rooms, the big giants will invite the advertiser to bring their own first-party data, and in an aggregated manner, the advertiser can then further do a match to understand how was the campaign performance, whether the consumer was exposed, at what frequency, and then what is the return on ad spend they're doing.
Thanks, Bharat. I'll in fact come on the clean data room part in the later part of the show. But talking about contextual advertising, Vikram, if I can get you in here, contextual advertising is where recently Facebook faced a lot of flack. A lot of advertisers pulled out because they did not want to be associated with certain political messages that were going around on Facebook, and also certain kind of messages when the Black Lives Matter campaign was in full force in the last month or two. So if we're going back to contextual advertising, then you have these kind of dangers which Facebook faced. How does one thereby even protect the contextual part from not being challenged? Because if the context goes out of the place, again, we are back to the same problem.
Before contextual and between ad tech display, we had a lot of these clamor around brand safety. What we exactly are speaking today, advertisers do not want to relate themselves or to get their ads listed onto a page which is basically, say, for example, there is an airline mishap that has happened and you don't want to show your banner selling a ticket out there. So definitely it is not going to be like a complete full-blown solution than it was there. But today, if you look at alternatives have really come up where brand safe deliveries contextually are possible. Today, you have a good amount of third-party providers who have built a lot of intelligence engine around contextual. So you have likes of Double Verify, Integral Ad Science, Tier 39. They have put in a lot of investments and science around it where we can, as an ad tech, players can partner with them, improve their brand safety models where they do not want to show their ads or do not want to feature their any communication for their advertisers, and bring in a much more brand safe delivery of advertising and communications as part of their overall messaging to the consumer. And purely when you look at ad tech, today it's like a combination of series of partners where we are working. So today, if you look at somebody like a buyer that Bharat is today increasing relevancy, giving a lot of measured and safe measurement related modules to their advertisers, which they agree to their global standards, and they see this as a benchmark on how the relevance will be delivered. See, going back to contextual is definitely going to be there, but you need to also simultaneously improve your targeting and make it much more sophisticated, move beyond cookie-based targeting to people-based targeting. So today, it will be more of a co-op between a publisher and an advertiser. An advertiser first-party data will be co-opted with a publisher first-party data. A combination of co-opting, a safe delivery of messaging will come into play. So these are modules which will get themselves played out going forward, where people-based destinations and people-based targeting based on contextual or based on hashed IDs apart from cookies will come into picture via the data management platforms or CDP platforms. This will be the way forward rather than just relying on a pure play, one single combination.
Taking off from where Vikram talked about contextual advertising, brand safety. So Dipto, wanted to understand from you, during the period of COVID-19, what we witnessed was that there was a blanket ban on brands wanting to be associated with the word COVID, pandemic, corona. And they virtually blocked out on the ad network saying, do not present my brand around it. But was that a lost opportunity also? Because certain clients like insurance, for them, it still made a lot of sense. All right. But if there was a singular technology or what they call it in search, that certain keywords are blocked without the context, then actually it might have been a lost opportunity. Did you experience something like that? And what do you think is the way out to keep brand safety and the context in together in a context, so to say, if I may say?
Uh, there are always two ways to look at stuff like this, Deepak. Do we call it a lost opportunity, especially in a situation like this? I think this kind of situation was unprecedented, and I don't think so anyone had ever anticipated or planned for something like this. So to work on, something like this on the fly, especially at a time and period when nobody knew as to when the peak is going to come, and there is a personal point of view, which I would first say, which is that, there are sometimes I think in the larger interest, we should probably take a back seat and, let's just think, the human life probably is more important than anything else, right? In the professional context, from a business perspective, sure. I mean, in hindsight, we can always see this as a lost opportunity or an opportunity where things could have been done. But please bear in mind, we all have a part to play, right? And when we come to attribution and stuff like that, especially in a scenario like this, I would not think that there would be too many advertisers who would be keen to run on this, right? Was it an opportunity lost for us? I don't think so. The way I look at it, the opportunity was always there. Nothing's changed. The clean supply has already been there. The quality inventory has already been there. It is for the buyer to then take advantage of that. Now, was the buying community a little apprehensive about, going all out, especially keeping in mind that these were unprecedented times and nobody could have anticipated or planned for it? That's more a conjecture than an answer, right?
I'll actually get the buyer's point of view, and Bharat is well placed. When he was, buying all the inventory that he saw required from the advertiser. So clients for you, Bharat, were they too cagey and too scared to advertise? Because we did see some brands do advertise. HDFC launched a campaign. All the online pharmacies launched a few campaigns, I remember. So on the whole, were the buyers too cagey and too scared to be associated around this time, or did they still find niches and, if one can call it, an opportunity to be able to talk about themselves, their brand? In a way, it was also a help to the consumer, right? Because if somebody came to know that there is a certain hospital available or an insurance available or an e-pharmacy, it was equally a help to the consumer.
So I think there are two ways. Definitely, some of the brands identify this as an opportunity stage because the overall disruption was happening both on the supply and the demand economics. But one side, definitely, like you said, I will echo that point that consumers wanted some reassurance from the brands. And when consumers are looking for that reassurance, they are looking towards the brand, that how they can, as a brand, support them during this pandemic stage. So I think somewhere down the line, some of the brands was very cautious enough to understand that whatever they are going to spend in the pandemic, what will be the return on ad spend. And some of them didn't find any value to continue advertising because during the lockdown, there were other things also impacted, like a distribution channel, supply chains and all that. But really, there are a lot of, I would say, good iconic brands who came out loud during the pandemic, whether it is part of the overall QSR category or the food delivery apps, or even, I would say, the entertainment companies in the OTT space, who clearly came out in loud fashion and clearly showcase how they can relate to consumer sentiment during the COVID without even talking about COVID or pandemic in their messaging. So I think that's what the right approach, what buyers did over the last 3 months.
So I'll just add to that, Deepak, what you said, Bharat, is very important, because I came across this Netflix article, and I'm sure you're also aware of that, where Netflix leveraged the power of their own data to actually stop charging consumers who had, inactive accounts, and especially during these times. And that I felt was very powerful. So without doing much advertising, it's looking inside, figuring out your own data, layering ML there, and coming out with a solution to actually benefit the consumer. I mean, that's the kind of reassurance I'd want. You know, so as a consumer, uh, sure, I want information, but then when that information comes with a brand messaging, uh, as a fairly evolved consumer, I would take that with a pinch of salt. However, what Netflix did is something that is quite amazing, and that I'm talking purely from a consumer aspect right now. So
Yeah.
that's leveraging their own in-house data.
Yeah. Or even if you think about the iconic brand Nike, how what they talk about as
Yeah.
a statement that play for the world and stay at home. Yeah. So that one simple statement going out on a social channel is far more relevant than spending billions of dollars on advertising globally to tell how Nike wants to associate during this pandemic.
With the third-party cookie purge, which Google has so announced, do you think that it will impact both the buy side and the sell side, and thereby the industry at large?
See, if you look at from a market perspective, and especially India, we never had a very over reliance on third party cookie as a narrative, because a lot of these were more of a global solution, because India never had a very big chunk of dependency when it comes to third party data partners. Purely from the fact that as a market, we never had that level of penetration by these data partners who could give us relevant profiles or data segments or sort of experiences which can ultimately help us even reach out to those pseudo audiences. So we never had that luxury of getting that in-depth narrative of third-party data players. And if you also look at post GDPR, the relevance of third-party has completely gone for a toss. It's virtually killed third-party cookies because the collection methodology, the verification, the validity, the privacy metrics that is followed, all of them have not resulted into third-party data going exponentially, seeing exponential growth or at the usage level. But I would just like to also point out that in the India context parlance, a lot of these users never had such a high reliance on using third-party, because the type of media mix that was used never had given them a luxury to go behind that third-party data cookie and make sort of a relevance. But it was always more within that own walled garden ecosystem that they used to, the ones advertisers used to address their data or those audiences, and have never had a very transactional journey towards streamlining or mainstreaming the third-party cookies, per se, from an India market perspective.
One of the reasons why third-party cookies weren't that relevant is because what I said, it did not work in all environments. It does not work in a CTV environment. It does not work in a mobile app environment, right?
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I actually see this as an opportunity, a huge opportunity for the open web. I see this, the impending demise of third-party cookies. The industry is busy developing identity solutions that will place open web and in-app programmatic inventory on par or at levels of addressability as it is seen in the walled gardens, and it's unprecedented. Players from across the industry and the ecosystem are collaborating right now, like what in a way that we've not seen before. I mean, we are actively engaging with organizations like IAB or Treebit.org. New ID solutions are already seeing significant traction, and as budgets continue to shift more towards mobile web and apps, so creating a solution that is applicable for all formats and future-proof is high on the agenda for everyone. I think this is something which is top of mind for all three of us here. And again, demonstrating a level of forward thinking that probably has been missing in the ad tech industry for a while. So yeah, I mean, the focus on privacy compliant ID solution is putting the publishers back in the driving seat. I think I think Vikram did speak about the first party data piece some time ago, and it's important. It's important to put the publisher back in the driving seat because they are the main point of contact with the audience, and they work hard to build relationships and trust. I mean, take Economic Times, for example. It's taken you guys years and years to come to where you are. And you do not want to be in a position where your data is compromised. So a privacy first approach to customer data is crucial to ensure that this trust is maintained. And we are seeing an increasing appetite from advertisers and their agencies to engage with premium partners and the benefits that bring in terms of brand association. I think Bharat and Vikram both spoke about contextual layered with brand suitability and stuff like that. So this becomes all the way more important, and as bidding becomes more and more crowded within the walled gardens. By contrast, the open web is limitless. So it's important that we continue to develop a standard ID solution. We continue to invest in that, and we continue to work with partners like IAB or Treebit.org to build on these. So that's the opportunity that I'd want to focus on, Deepak.
Bharat, from the client's point of view, the brands always have tried to be towing the politically correct line. So if there are privacy purists which are saying that please do not take my data, please do not abuse. If the publishers come back to the advertiser and say, hey, I will not give you direct data to my audience because very clearly they do not want to be exposed in the manner that they've been maybe in the past. Equally, the brands themselves are working towards data clean room, being politically correct. I mean, the Fair and Lovely being renamed was a very clear indication from a very big brand saying that we need to be politically correct and we need to be on the right side of the law as well as perception in the consumers. So how does an advertiser thereby still be able to manage a far better ROI regardless of the third-party cookie purge and all the other trackable metrics that were so prevalent, but maybe abusing the privacy part of it?
I think from an advertiser point of view, definitely advertisers are looking for a pragmatic approach. What can be a holistic view of a consumer? And with all these policy changes from a third party, that view slightly maybe going on a diminishing side for them to understand more proxies about consumer. But I think one point which I wanted to bring on to the discussion today while Vikram and Sudipta was talking about the third party impact in India. I think India as a market, again, if you see the list of third-party partners, they're more or less probabilistic data partners, deterministic. So what they are selling right now, it's also a probability that the consumer might be doing these types of behavioral actions or transactions or journal versus very limited number of third-party partners who have deterministic data, which I would clearly say a consumer opt-in. So I clearly see this as a good sign from a consumer data regulation point of view that the industry is taking this bold step. And from an advertiser fraternity point of view, I think, like I said, there are enough solutions available, which most of our advertisers are already shaping up, whether it's about building their own first-party data pool, which can also be through the type of ads that they're running, by connecting with consumer on a survey-based platforms, more intense, taking an opt-in from consumer, that how their data can add value to the brand. These are a lot of strategies which we are supporting our brands in building their first-party pool. And like I said, it's maybe 1.5, 2 years journey what we are focusing on right now, which is a good, I would say, head start for brands to create their own big pool of consumer insights. And when we talk about the open data private rooms, I think that's the future. So if an advertiser wants to really understand at what frequency they're running a campaign across these big giants, or what is the return on ad spend they can achieve, I think these open private data rooms is a good policy and a clean way where advertiser can bring their own first party data and the big giants can bring their aggregated data, and we can have a close match on aggregated level at a hash level for advertisers to understand what's the return on ad spend that digital is going to deliver. Plus, I think more or less on these third-party data partners and the cookie, I think our dependency is not there. So India is a market, again, the channels in which we advertise, these channels are mostly in-app channels. And when I say in-app channel, these are already controlled, restricted, and the walls are already risen much higher than the big giant walls. So technically, the integration of what we're talking from a third party coming to the India landscape is still far away. So it's good that we never get into that trap of over dependency on the third party.
Is it also because, Bharat, a lot of the key campaign matrix get delivered by just focusing on the big guys within the walled garden? I mean, when you bring up a very valid point about clean data rooms, but the clean data rooms today is essentially nothing but, the way I look at it, an extension of what Google, Facebook, and Amazon are willing to put there. So, it's their data which is being put there. It's you as an advertiser layering your data on top of that to figure out as to, what's been the effective reach and so on and so forth. But what about the independent publishers who are also out there creating content and also have, huge amounts of first-party data and also have the right users? So, just a quick thought on that. I mean, I get it. I mean, when you say that third-party cookies weren't that relevant, but then, the deterministic data that you're talking about essentially are there with the walled gardens is because they have, that's the only way to access them, maybe. Right? So,
yeah, I think for an open web, what I would focus on more is that one, the contextual relevancy that we talked about in the open web, which is, I would say, more suitable for brands, the way they are now looking to advertise in the open web. Secondly, I think these clean data rooms are not just the big giants, what they are figuring right now. I think the future is all about how clients and the brands can create their own private clean data room, or maybe in partnership with independent companies like Salesforce, or maybe with Nielsen. And I think once we get into that stage, I think that's where the open web publishers will also support in bringing what sort of proxies they understand about consumers. And even if we just talk from the current ground reality, I don't think so there is a challenge where a brand wants to connect with the news publisher and wants to know what is the match rate between their database versus the publisher database, so that understand whether they should advertise a communication which is for their existing consumer, or they should advertise a messaging which is to acquire a new consumer. So I think it's just the way a market has to drive partnerships in the open web.
Mhm.
That's required.
It's sort of now demonstrated that nearly 49% of the advertiser spend does not end up with the publisher. So there's a
Yeah.
huge sort of chain in the middle, which is in a way, not letting the full ROI, or in a way spend from the advertiser to the publisher. There's a gap. And is that eating into the system and making the entire digital advertising ecosystem inefficient?
The report said that, that 50% did not go to the publishers. But the alternative is not that 100% should go to the publishers. I'll tell you why. Because the agencies, the DSPs, the SSPs, etc., all provide value, and that value cannot come free. So the alternative is a non-programmatic approach to buying media, in which advertisers spend significantly more to reach their target audiences in a more inefficient way. Buyers have the tools to make intelligent decisions, right? And intelligent decisions about the ROI benefits they receive from the addressability and the granularity of programmatic versus direct IOs. So my biggest takeaway of the study is that we need more transparency in the programmatic supply chain.
Yeah.
And the buyers are in a position to leverage their spending power to drive that change. And the buyers are doing that. SPO conversations are continuing to accelerate. The marketers should be critical of their supply partners to ensure transparency and efficiency of media spend.
Yeah.
And buyers who have a clear view of their digital supply are more likely to know exactly where their media investment is going, right? And hence they are less likely to be exposed to the bad outcomes of like having ads end up in a fraudulent or a low value environment. So yeah,
So
I mean,
the comparison comes because traditionally in a print or a media TV world, there used to be the 10 to 15% of commission that the agency took, and the balance was used to buy the inventory on the so-called media and the medium. Right now, what is happening is gone down to as low as 50%. So it's that missing or the extra 35%, which tends to be getting compared. You're saying that, the people in the middle are actually providing value, and had they not, with the programmatic guys and people like at Pubmatic, then there would be more wastage. Is that what you're alluding to?
No, what I'm saying is that we are all providing value to the ecosystem. I am curating the right inventory in a brand safe, transparent environment with layers of viewability and addressability in it. Bharat is investing in systems to make buying efficiencies come at scale. They are investing in technology to make it more simpler and more efficient, right? As a DSP, they are putting layering, they're layering targeting, they're making it more micro targeted, they're making it more accurate. It is why is this important? Is because relevancy is key. We are able to provide you the right customer at the right time so that you can send the right messaging. Does that really happen in the television or print world, my friend? I beg to differ.
I guess the print and the television world used to have, over and above, the commissions, they used to have their retainership, they used to have the creative charges. Maybe it's innovative billing mechanism that needs to come into play, which were introduced in the print and television world.
See, I think I have a point.
I'll tell you what. So I'll tell you, Deepak. I know that, for example, as Pubmatic, we were pretty much at the forefront of this. We went to town in, I think, 2017 with the Let's Be Clear campaign, which spoke about, not having any hidden fees, or there's no media buying fee and stuff like that. The reality is that the ecosystem has woken up to the requirement of transparency, and that's what I'm saying. At the end of the day, buyers are driving that. There is SPO conversations which are happening. Buyers who have a clear view of the digital supply chain are the ones, who are going to have a positive outcome in this.
See, the larger narrative around this is basically what we call the ad tech tax. The entire ecosystem that we are running, there is a certain tax that everybody needs to pay, so it's Sudipto just put it softly as a value add, or we drive a value chain and we take that. But publishers are never going to make 100%. But that ad tech tax can be optimized purely by making sure that whenever somebody is paying that tax, the parallel wastage in that supply path optimization has to come down. It can't survive that the wastage is also high and the tax is also high. That is not how it works.
As a result of the wastage in the middle, there are many premium publishers who are, doing direct deals or, initiating strategic interactions on the buy-side platforms. And they're doing their own private contracts. Is this the right step, though, for the industry?
No, I would say something what Sudipto mentioned about SPO, which was another acronym that the digital fraternity created, which is supply path optimization. And then Vikram talked about the tech taxonomy, how much tax we are paying on using DSP, an SSP, a BAV partner like a brand safety, measurement, ad fraud, viewability. So these are different ecosystem players who are adding certain value. And I would also take a step back when you were talking about print and television. When we were in the print and the television ecosystem, majorly it's inventory buying. So when I say inventory buying, you buy an inventory and traditionally you buy an inventory in a manual basis, calling someone, sending an email, fixing a pricing and all. When we jumped into the digital space of buying, we started with the same concept and we were buying placements. But all of a sudden, a decade back, we realized we can also buy audiences. So why should I buy a placement when audience is more important to me? That's where I think this whole ad tech ecosystem got created. So I think the conversation is not about, am I buying media, pure play, or am I buying an outcome which should add value to my business? So if I'm looking to buy an outcome, the conversation is actually flipped side. An advertiser is putting $100 on the table. Out of that $100, what value each partner is adding, and out of that, definitely publisher is the larger chunk, because that's the real estate where I'm going to advertise my message, my communication. But definitely there are a lot of middlemen who are adding value, and I would be honest, yes, there are a lot of middlemen who are not adding value in the ecosystem, and they're just creating a lot of burden. So maybe I would say a basic example: if you're buying a premium inventory, which is running on in-app environment, and the inventory only runs when the screen is active. So there is no point to putting a viewability pixel on that because the inventory is already highly viewable. People can't run and watch an ad in a non-active screen because it's a mobile screen. So that way we have to understand what's the right mix of ad tech versus data versus the inventory that the combination should flow in. I think that's where the narrative will change, that $100 which was flowing and which became 50 to a publisher, where is this going on? And if we bring the supply path optimization, which is more transparency, building direct relationship with publisher, adding more value into a direct contact and removing the media aggregators, the reseller, I think that's where the ecosystem will get into more transparent format, and it will be a win-win both for the buyer fraternity as well as the publisher fraternity.
Right. So, Dipto, I'll come to another point. During COVID-19, there was a huge surge in the viewership and the readership across all the digital platforms, be it the OTT, be it the news websites, anything and everything, because people were wanting to consume information from whatever credible sources that they could so find. So as a result, there was massive viewership across all digital platforms. But what did it do to the CPM? Did it fall? Was there oversupply and lack of buyers? Just wanted to understand, what happened to the CPM and the net yield thereby.
So I wouldn't comment on what happened to the CPMs, broadly, Deepak. However, what's important to note is that what you mentioned was that a lot of offline transactions were going online. So pretty much everything, even for folks like us, we were pretty much ordering or consuming everything online. However, we did not see that translate immediately to advertising dollars, and that goes to Bharat's earlier point of favorability and the suitability of the news and stuff like that. So, there was a significant rise in news viewership and readership. OTTs, yes, also saw a rise, but please note that the rise that OTT saw cannot sort of you cannot draw the same parallel in terms of the there cannot be a direct proportion in rise of viewership and advertising dollars. That's simply because a lot of advertising that was happening in those days is also linked to supply chain and stuff like that. And for pretty much a large part of the CPG group, supply chains were horribly affected. So even if I were to advertise, how do I get the bang for the top dollar? I don't. So you saw a spurt in healthcare and pharma advertising probably going up. You saw a spurt in telecom and data advertising going up, right? It's because a lot of us were working from home or schooling from home and all that. But overall advertising, did shrink a bit.
Bharat, with the Xaxis, which consolidates all the Group M, buying that you will now do, how has the buying strategy evolved? Does the economies of the scale play here a big advantage? Is that the reason why everything was consolidated? And in the long run, does economies of scale become a big lever, or are there any other levers?
The foundation is all about how we move the overall digital buying towards an outcome. That's I would say, the core and the crux of how the Xaxis formation happened. And I think if I take again a step back, 2013 is where we started the operations in India, primarily with the concept of audience buying company, and with the first one who had a proprietary data management platform way back in 2013. So 2013, I'm talking about walking to a brand office and telling them that, hey, there is a data management platform which has a lot of insights, behaviors about consumer. How can we activate a relevant profile for you? So that was, I would say, a 2013 era. And if I talk about 2020, the game has completely changed. We have now invested into a proprietary artificial intelligence optimization tool, which sits over and above the demand side platform. And it helps us add more value in terms of not just the human side of the optimization, but as well as from the tech side of the optimization. And if I talk about more on the media consolidation, I think the need was there. It was just about who will be the first one to drive this. And I'm really happy that as an organization, we clearly stood out in the market as a thought leader in partnership with Sudipto, Vikram, and other key stakeholders of the fraternity, that the media consolidation is not just about seeing consumer from a single lens. It is also about welcoming advertising for consumer. So when I say welcoming advertising for consumer, the same consumer is being bugged by a same ad 5 times on one platform, then again 5 times on another platform, which is adding a lot of irrelevancy to the whole advertising ecosystem. So how can we drive media consolidation using data and technology and add value to brands in terms of efficiency, effectiveness on media buying by removing the duplication, bringing the unified frequency approach. Plus, it's also about, like I said, adding value to consumers so that the consumers start welcoming advertising and they see relevant advertising, not just the usual way of getting bugged.
So here comes the fun part of the rapid fire show at ET Catalyze. So the first question, one word, the way you'll describe pandemic, and no, you're not allowed to be calling it unprecedented. I'll start with you, Vikram.
Unpredictable.
Bharat.
The new abnormal.
Sudipto.
The new normal.
Okay. Next question. One skill set that you never knew resided deep inside you, but you discovered during the lockdown. Sudipto.
Stockholm syndrome towards my wife.
Vikram.
So me, I never knew that I was a sales guy.
Bharat.
I never knew that I can support my parents in cooking.
Sorry, come again, support?
In cooking, I never realized that I'm a better cook, but that is something I discovered.
You discovered the chef in you. Yeah. Great. I'm sure your family and your wife was very happy with that revelation.
You're still not married.
Oh, fair enough. Then the future to be. All right. Another question. What was the most challenging part of your job during the pandemic? Vikram?
Basically keeping the team together, because since we all were at one place, it was good, but keeping the team together and motivated, that was the most challenging part. I had to do a lot of new practices to do that.
Sudipto?
Two things. Personally, managing, the home front kids, and ensuring that it was business as usual. And from a professional perspective, obviously, lack of personal interaction with clients and the team has its own toll, and that's been a challenge that we've had to navigate.
Bharat?
For me, it was driving empathy on both the buying side and the selling side, because I think everyone wanted to do something in real time, and when people are sitting at home, the expectations are high.
The final question, we've talked about privacy, third-party cookie, IDFA. If there was supposed to be a common standard which balanced all the needs and requirements, keeping the privacy issues in mind and keeping the advertisers and the buyer side and publisher side interest in mind, what would you want to name that common standard?
Audience Encore.
Audience Encore. Vikram?
Unified Consumer Profile, UCP.
Okay. An acronym, UCP. Bharat? Consumer?
Consumer-driven buying.
Consumer-driven buying standard.
We call it CDP.
CDP. All right. So we had UCP, CDP, and Consumer
and
Encore.
Audience Encore. No, Audience Encore.
Audience Encore. Right. So if at all we do come up with a standard, we at least have given 3 options to the advertising and the Matchstacks fraternity today. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deepak. Thank you very much for this insightful conversation.
Yeah, great. We also had great understanding and learning about digital advertising, ad stacks, and the Matchstacks of the world. And if at all, we've contributed at least a term for the new normal and the new standard that might just come into play. Thanks a lot.